Welcome to Witch TV. We are back with, we're going to do a whole year-long forecast with tarot cards, but we're going to do it incrementally. So we're going to do spring in this session, doing it month by month, March, April, May. We've each drawn 3 cards, and we'll go through that and talk about it. So if you want to see what's going on, all the ups and downs and obstacles and breakthroughs that we are seeing coming up this spring, join us. We're going to get started with March. So Deidre, March.
So the card I pulled for the collective for March 2021 was the reversed Knight of Swords. And when I think of the Knight of Swords upright, he's charging ahead. I mean, you can see I'm using the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, and he's very frantic, ready for action. So reversed, he's still ready for action, but the way I think of it is not great. I really so one of my favorite tarot writers, Rachel Pollack, I really like what she has to say about the reverse knight, which is, she says, he is extravagant, careless, excessive. His charge becomes wild, a mistaken response to a situation that calls for a quieter, more careful approach. So thinking about that in terms of the pandemic, it feels like people, of course, we're all really ready for this to be over, and kind of itching to go back to our pre-pandemic lives. And with the vaccine, I feel like it makes us feel like, oh, it's okay now, at least on some days, even though it's maybe not time, at least not in a way that would be in the highest good for the collective if people are doing that. So that was my interpretation of the Knight for March, especially because in this month already, it's only the 6th, or wait, was it this month or was it? But with certain states announcing that they're going to allow things to open back up at 100% capacity. So it's already happening, and that's how I interpreted the Knight for this month.
Mm-hmm. What did you get, Brent?
I got the Tower.
Nice.
So this is Tarot of the Holy Spectrum by Chase Voorhees. Okay, so I mean, the Tower, it's a pretty triggering card for a lot of people. To be completely honest, I don't even really flinch when I pull it anymore, just because the Tower is a card of transformation. It's a card of like the foundations that were laid, and if the foundations that were laid were not on like steady ground, if they were built upon sand, let's say, the Tower burns them away because it needs to get rid of what is not serving us so that we can build something that does. Considering that we just came out of a 4-year just nightmare, essentially, a lot of those foundations, it makes sense that they're falling. Also, I mean, America's built on some pretty, let's say, shaky foundations, let's just be honest. But I mean, I would say that right now, I mean, also keep in mind too, that like with say like the astrological year, we start the new year astrologically with Aries. Like, so on the spring equinox, that is when it's essentially like our new year starts. So we're still in 2020. So which also kind of makes sense considering the, I mean, not 2020, you know what I mean? Like that, yeah. But with the Tower, it's ruled by Mars. It's fire, it's sudden upheaval, it's change. And I mean, yeah, it's very now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised. The thing too that to consider about the tower is that the lightning strike here and the people falling out of the tower. Now, in typical Rider Waite depictions of this, it's just like two people falling. In this interpretation that I like quite a bit, they're in the fetal position, which indicates a possibility of rebirth. The lightning strike specifically, again, that is the moment. The tower in itself is just kind of like the energy around that. We also don't have to fear the tower because the tower is already happening. When you draw this card, you don't have to be scared because you can just know that this is what is, I don't know, meant to. I don't want to say meant to be. Let's not go there.
That's what's happening right now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's basically the universe is clearing out what doesn't serve us so that we can have something better.
Yeah. So I use the Aleister Crowley Toth deck, and it's funny because it's kind of like, I've always been kind of unsettled by this deck, and I've actually barely used it. This is the backs of the cards if you don't have the deck. I like how they're oversized, so I guess they come in different sizes, but I like how they're bigger. You can really see the gorgeous art. The art is just like next level, out of this world, just popping out at you. It feels very personal as well as very cosmic at the same time, which is like, it's actually really hard to pull off. But
I love the devil in that deck.
Yeah, it's so good.
The goat, so good.
So the card that I got was the star. So that's the star in the Crowley deck. Sorry about this stupid glare. So beautiful. And actually, I'd say this is probably the most positive of all the ones that we drew for this month. And what I gather from it is, and also another interesting thing is it is in the deck, it is the card that directly follows the tower card. So it's kind of like completing that story. What I'm seeing is, like Tristan said, definitely upheaval and rebirth. We're seeing a lot of that. We're going to be seeing a lot of that all year, honestly, especially this year, because it's just, I think beyond just COVID, we are transitioning into what we used to think of as the future. Technology is advancing. A lot of things are changing, and COVID has kind of sped things up. A lot of things that might have taken 20 more years to automate, now they're just going to happen right away. And which also means, it's going to suck if you have like those kinds of jobs, because they're just not going to exist anymore. Anything that can be done by machines is going to be done by machines now. But when I think of the star, I think about, is Aquarius the card connected?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think about, it's a water bringer. I think about communication. I think about the internet. I think about technology. So I think a lot of the light and hope that is going to be coming through the various means of airborne communication, whatever those may be. And I think we are seeing, a little light at the end of the tunnel in sight because of the vaccines and so forth. So there is a sort of, everybody kind of crawling out of, the rocks they were under with the coming of spring and with the coming of, definitely a new administration that is, I hate to get all political, but has been a lot more proactive in just getting the vaccine out there and getting it moving along. So, it's moving. and there's pathways towards opening up the world and moving forward, not just this year and not just in our personal lives, but really taking like bigger steps towards kind of the global community connecting and thinking of better solutions towards moving forward. The Mars landing was kind of a little indication of that. Like we're reaching out, we're reaching out and we're getting out there. So it's surprisingly positive, my card for this month at least.
Which is funny because coming from such an intense deck too.
I know. Well, the next one's scary, so sort of.
Well, I think it's interesting how, we all talked when we were getting ready for this session about how it would be interesting to see what our different energies would bring for the different months, since it's obviously pretty unlikely that we would all draw the same cards for March, April, May, right? So, if you think about the star, it's offering this hope, this light at the end of the tunnel, which is totally real as we are looking at the vaccines. And then I drew the Knight of Swords reversed, which is saying, people are maybe moving forward when it's not time for that yet. But that's part of the hope. It's so clearly interconnected. Just different energy brought on by the same events in the world.
I'd like to take a pause to show everybody what our decks are. So Deidre has the classic Rider-Waite. Do you have the box to show?
I have, I keep mine in this bag that has the world on it.
Oh, cool.
Which
Whoa,
is
nice.
from the deck. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. Love it. So that's like the classic deck. And I went with the Crowley Toth deck. I think people have very strong feelings about it and Crowley, honestly. I find it to be all by unsettling, very powerful and very artist friendly. Like there's literally an art card, which you don't see in any other deck. Like there's lust, art, was it debauch? Like there's like very like artsy cards. So it's super fun if you just want like something to inspire you and to get your creativity juices flowing. Like I think it's just superb for that. And if you can deal with its truth bombs, it's great too. And then Tristan has
so it's Tarot of the Holy Spectrum. It is an independently designed deck by one of my teachers, Lindsay Mack. This deck is informed by her essentially because he's her husband, and so a lot of these cards have a very like trauma actually based tarot practice, or like tarot like system, I guess, like within there, and a lot of like the interpretations, like again, like that womb thing is definitely part of her teachings. I really like it. There's just really gorgeous art, and it's a lot different than a lot of stuff that I've seen. I use both of the decks that you got that you guys use. I use the Thoth deck every single day. It's my like daily draw. And then the Rider-Waite is, classic. I love it. So
yeah.
Can
I show everyone the three books that I have a lot of tarot books that I really love, but the three that I've been using or that I was using today are, this is my all-time favorite, Rachel Pollack, 78 Degrees of Wisdom. It's a classic. A recent one, and the other two I really like are recent. One is True Heart Tarot by Rachel True. This just came out recently, and Rachel True is famous among witches for playing Rochelle in The Craft.
Oh,
and
wow.
She's also a tarot reader and a tarot expert, and I really like this book and her deck as well. And another recent one that I've been using is Josephine McCarthy's Tarot Skills for the 21st Century, which is very intense, but very interesting. And they're all three.
That sums her up, to be honest.
But I love them. I love these three. So
Nice.
Nice.
I wish I'd grabbed mine. But I have this like big one for the Crowley,
ooh,
so it's like not
I
the
don't have that one.
it comes with it. It's a whole other separate book that like goes in depth, and you can it has
For
like, whole
for
page.
Crowley, there's one called Tarot Mirror for the Soul by a guy who I always forget his name, but
Gerd
it's
Ziegler. I don't know if I'm
there you go.
pronouncing that right.
Yep, Gerd Ziegler, whatever.
Yeah.
That's so good. Like that one has like literally like affirmations for each card that you can like apply to the day or whatever. I love it so much.
So cool.
Yeah, Brent, you recommended that one to me, and now I
Yeah.
use it like every single day when I do because I also do my daily draw with the Thoth deck, and I always use
Yeah.
that book, and it's so good.
Yeah, a friend of mine just sent me that book out of absolutely nowhere, and I had never read with a Thoth deck. And that is why I read with a Thoth deck, is because of that book. So yeah, like it was there, yeah, because like their dad used that book, like used the deck like forever ago, and they were just like, oh, I think Britt would like this. Like,
Wow.
thank you. It wasn't for anything. It was just like a box of books. I was like, thank you so much. So shout out to Arabelle Sicardi because they're amazing.
Nice.
Cool. So that's our general view of what March is looking like. Let's go to April.
So for April, I drew the devil reversed. Just a classic. A lot of devil energy in our draws today.
Yeah.
So with the devil, I never quite know how to think of him reversed. So I once again went to my fave, Rachel Pollack. And one thing she wrote that felt relevant to our current global situation was about the devil reversed being about an attempt to break loose from misery or bondage, because you can see in this card and in a lot of decks, we have the two humans literally chained to the devil. And she writes that paradoxically, it is at precisely such time that we feel our unhappiness and the limitations of our lives most strongly, when we're undergoing some process of liberation, and that's when people often find themselves more unhappy than when they blindly accepted their oppressed condition. And what I thought of on a personal level, at least for me, and I've talked to some other people who are feeling this way, although certainly not everyone, is that there is a way in which I have some anxieties about kind of re-entering the world once there's a higher percentage of vaccinated people, or once I am vaccinated. And it's very strange to feel that way, because of course we're living in a wild time and I don't want anyone to get sick ever. But I think that having these uncertainties of like, oh, maybe it's close, and then you're supposed to pull back, there's something about it that feels more difficult than when we kind of knew the rules of being in lockdown, like full lockdown.
Yeah.
So that's what I thought of, but that one felt a little tricky for me if you guys have thoughts about the reverse devil.
The devil's just really an interesting energy in general, because I mean, like it really is like about a liberation, and it's about, because the big thing about the especially with the Rider-Waite, if you look, those chains, although you're chained, they're actually not connected to anything, so they're actually free to walk away from that moment at any time.
Right. And the shackles are kind of loose on their bodies.
Yeah, so the whole thing is about, like, you could walk away from the situation at any time. The reverse would, yeah, I mean, I don't know, reverses are weird for me. I actually don't read with them. I totally support everybody who does, and I get it, of course, but for whatever reason, it doesn't really resonate with me.
Yeah, like
Um,
off deck, you're actually not even supposed to read reverses, I think.
yeah. I mean,
Shadow,
I
shadow side. It's the shadow or it's blockage. Like when the fairy deck I have, like it was like, well, the interpretation of reverse cards is just like it's the energy, but it's tangled or blocked in some way. You know, something is keeping it from being.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I say that I don't really read with reverses, but to be honest, the only reason I ever will is if I get like kind of like an intuitive hit that it needs to be reversed, and that sounds kind of woo woo whatever. But you know, like there is occasionally times where I'll be like, you know, in this situation it doesn't really make sense, so maybe it should be reversed, and then I kind of like check in and whatever. But I was gonna read real quick something about the devil. Come on, where you at, girl?
I think like a thought that occurred to me with the devil is like um, everybody just kind of struggling with their personal devils,
mhm.
and this is what that looks like. So like some people, they're gonna want to go out to the bar and party. You know, some people are going crazy under lockdown and just succumbing to their worst addictions, whether it be substance abuse or relationship or online trolling or whatever it is that gets them off. Um, so, or struggling with your paranoia, struggling with like whatever it is that you're struggling with, it's going to get more tough in April, which makes sense because then it's going to be even more like, okay, well, it's definitely nice out. You know, why am I not feeling better? Or why can't I do this? Can I do this? Can I do that? Like, it's just going to feel, I think things are going to feel complicated. Like
Yeah,
and it might be an illusion and some of it might be real. They might just be in your head that you're just complicating it more because you have all these, like you were saying, like, well, I've been telling myself, like, don't go out, don't go out. And so now I can go out. Like that just doesn't make sense. So it's like everybody's going to be having their own personal struggles and they might feel detached from each other, even though, you know, it seems like people can be coming together more. There's going to be a lot of like weird unspoken frictions going on.
right. I would also say too, I know that Lindsay Mack discusses the devil reversed as essentially it's kind of like a lighter version of the devil.
Love
like
that.
and like it's basically because in her teaching, which I'll get into her teaching about the devil in just a second, but essentially what it is essentially kind of like that voice in the back of you, like the inner critic that's just like, you're not good enough, like you're fucked up, like there's something wrong with you. And which, you know, is very like of the time right now. Like of course, like we're gonna have those things, especially because we've been cooped up for all this time.
Yeah.
But with the reverse, it's kind of like we're aware of that voice, but it's kind of like go
Still
away. Like I know, like because what we've been discussing also, like with the star and the tower and stuff like that, we know that there are greater forces happening around us. So we can kind of just be like, like, okay, I understand like why my brain is kind of like freaking out right now, but like we got this, we're okay. Yeah, that would be my interpretation of the devil reversed, I think, for that situation.
That's interesting. All right.
I like that.
What did
Um, so I drew for April, right? um, the King of Cups.
ooh, pretty.
Um, love this card. So the King of Cups, like, you know, cups are water, cups are emotion, cups are healing. I would call King of Cups like probably one of the great healers of the tarot. This is a person that feels they are able to help themselves, and in doing that they're able to help others. So essentially they are able to fill their cup, because it's really important, because you can't really help anybody with you can't fill anybody else's cup unless yours is filled already.
Yeah.
So I think what this speaks to is we're tending to ourselves. It also probably speaks to the vaccine. You know, like that's the first thing that I thought of right when I saw this,
Yeah.
is that we're going to be getting more people vaccinated. And I think people are going to, again, maybe be taking care of themselves a little bit better around this time, because we're like, well, you know, like we're almost to the finish line. What are we doing? You know? And I would say too that it is, yeah, I mean, healing, tending to yourself, helping. I think the big thing too, it's service is a big thing with the Kings. It's an outward representation. It's an outward, because like with the pages, you set the foundation. With the knights, you start to put that in motion. With the queens, you get that inner reality. And with the kings, you are able to, it's a culmination of all of those things. So in the Page of Cups, you're kind of like delving into almost like an inner child kind of a thing, and getting in touch with your emotions at the very base of them. And with the Knight of Cups, that's probably one of the great healers of the tarot too. They're able to, the Knight of Cups is able to weather the storm, essentially. Like they are able to go through those hard times and still keep like a level head, level like emotions, and still keep moving. It's, you know, it in very dire situations, you're still able to like have hope. And then Queen of Cups is really about being able to be in two worlds at once, being able to be in the realm of now and in the realm of reality, but also your inner realms and the spirit worlds, or whatever you want to call them. And then the King of Cups is all of those things. It's a person that is in touch with their emotions, in touch with what they need, and in knowing those things, they also are able to provide those for other people.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I feel like what I'm seeing here is that people that do have that balance are going to be kind of guiding lights to everybody else that's struggling to have that, maintain their inner life and re-enter external life with a greater level of engagement as things kind of open up a bit more. All right, so what I got Death reversed. So that's fun.
Fun.
Love that card.
I
That
do
was so
too.
pretty.
I hate this glare. All right, so I should turn it up right side up so it's actually visible. It is so funky and weird. Like this is the most energetic death card I've ever seen in my life. Like this is like death, like jamming, rocking out. Like it's like
on some acid.
Like I feel like this is like a rock show death. Like just.
I was just thinking he looks like he's in a mosh pit.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like death. So that's an interesting visual interpretation. It's like that's death. Does it look like death? What does it really look like? You know. And it is interesting that it is ill-dignified, which I'll take to interpret as just kind of greater blockages. You know, I tend to think of death as a really good card to me. Of course, it's not good when people die, and I think people will be dying, so let's not gloss over that. There probably will be still a lot of deaths in May. But aside from actual physical death is the less good kind of death, especially if it was untimely, you know. But the other kind of death is when it's just the end of a cycle and it's the beginning of another, and it's still painful and really scary and confusing if you're not ready to kind of go into your new skin, but your old skin is old and tight and flaking off like a snake, and you're like in that in-between stage where you're like, well, I can't stay here, but where do I go? And just that painful catharsis. You know, the world, as I said before, we are in a time of extreme upheaval. The Tower card kind of went over that. And I think the ill-dignified aspect is that people will be resisting the natural growth and transition that needs to happen. There will be a lot of clinging to old habits, clinging to old ways of thinking, and not understanding why they don't work anymore, and just a frustration. I mean, you see it with people who are like, well, why can't I just go and not wear my mask in an enclosed space, you know, and they have to be explained or told to leave or whatever. And that's just a simple example. There's many other ways in which that manifests. But I also think that this is connected with the element of earth, so which in turn is connected with money. So I think there will be some perhaps some scary fluctuations in the stock market, possibly. So this is something maybe people watching can be like, oh, let's see if Lisa knows her shit. Let's see what happens in April. But that's my hypothesis, is something with money is going to get crazy. Something is just going to, it's already kind of gotten a little wacky, but like, who knows? I'm not going to say a stock market crash. I feel like that's a little too dramatic, but something weird with money. Money is going to be weird on like a bigger scale, not just people's personal money matters, but
not just Dogecoin.
Yeah.
I mean, too, that card is ruled by Pluto too, which rules, you know, power. Yeah, like you said, money, and you know, I think probably there's probably something to do with, I mean,
Mergers, maybe.
yeah. Well, like, I was just gonna say about like the things about like that we're having like with minimum wage and stuff like that, you know, like that just got, you know, shut down, and yeah, I mean, I think it's also like a corruption of power.
Yeah, no, I'm seeing like big level.
Shocking.
Not,
Yeah.
not the daily nitty gritty, but like big moves, big money moves, and perhaps reckless moves that lead to some kind of, you know, catastrophes of possibly minor or major natures. I can't tell. But to me, the fact that death is ill-dignified, that's what that indicates to me, because it's just like it's change and upheaval, but it's like off kilter somehow. Like it's like Pet Cemetery, you know, like it dies and then you bring it back and it's a zombie. Like, you know, something's off. Yeah. So let's do
May. So for May, speaking of the end of cycles, I got the World.
Oh, fabulous.
Sorry about the glare here too.
Probably the best card that one could get.
So good. Yeah, so I drew that and I was like, really? By May we'll have the World? Because, you know, it's the end of a cycle. It's so positive. It's completion. You see the world dancer. She's happy and she's just floating in a wreath in the sky like you do. So now I feel really excited about May, but
May Day.
Yeah, we'll celebrate Beltane and
dancing on a maypole.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready for God, I wanted to say The Ritual, but which is the name of the book it's based on, but I'm trying to say Wicker Man. I'm ready for some Wicker Man shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, to sacrifice a cop.
Yeah, like you do in May.
So, pagans sacrificing cops.
Someone won't come if you don't do it. You gotta do it.
Right.
And I was also, and like, I also, again, when I was looking at the books that I was showing everybody, so Josephine McCarthy specifically talks about the world tells of your survival of what the devil and the tower bring to your door, and your introspection and determination to rebuild, to succeed against all odds. So since you guys both got the tower and the devil, I also drew the devil. I felt like that was particularly relevant.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, so the world is ruled by Saturn, and Saturn is all about, like hard lessons. And I think that we've all had some pretty hard lessons over the past year.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's like a chapter that's closing out that it's kind of like closing that chapter or even like closing that book, putting it back on the shelf. And you might return to that in some other form, but for the most part, like that story is completed. I don't think that means that everything's done, of course.
I know.
But I think that's such a positive card. Like that gives me a lot of, like, with that and the star.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
See.
Like an undeniable force. Like you can't that card.
Yeah. I also think too, for me, in my personal experience with the world, is I usually will draw it when like limiting beliefs are kind of falling away, like when I did like healing work and things like that. Specifically, like I would target a limiting belief. See, we're connecting to our past episode. But literally after like a healing session, I would draw that card, that in the tower, because I think that those cards are really connected too, because it's like the tower is like that's fallen away, and then the world is like, okay, well, you're done with that story, move on, like go back to the Fool and start again.
And part of what makes the world so beautiful is that you don't start there. You have to go through some shit to get to the
totally.
We all have.
It's like it's like Dorothy at the end of The Wizard of Oz.
Mm-hmm.
She really did have the power the whole time to return, but she had to go through that journey and learn those lessons and make those connections, and then she was ready to go back to Kansas with fresh eyes. Now when she goes back, it's going to look different. It's not going to be just a boring farm, because now she knows there's more out there, and there's a whole world out. And in the book, not in the movie, but in the book, Ozma is like, well, you can come back anytime. Like, so, her whole perception has been completely flipped, her whole world, her whole experience. But she had to go through the journey. It wouldn't have meant anything if she had just gone and come back,
Yeah,
But
it's alchemy.
But of course, she has to be whining and bitching the whole time. Oh, I wish I was home. I wish I was home.
As you do. So for May, I got the devil.
Oh.
I love this devil card. So this is specifically. I'm gonna go ahead and speak to Lindsay Mack's teaching of the devil. Lindsay Mack says that when you draw the devil card, you're doing something right. Like you're on the right track, because the devil is about liberation. The devil, like we talked about with the people chained, but they can walk away anytime. I think that, so with that specifically, I actually drew some clarifiers that I like to do with the devil, again from Lindsay Mack's teaching, because with that I asked what we as a society or what we as a collective are chaining ourselves to, and I got the 5 of Wands and the 7 of Swords, and I think that makes a lot of sense. The 5 of Wands speaks to just like messiness, like it's the chaos before order, and you're just going to feel like you're a fucking mess. and there's often shame about that. And again, the devil also speaks to shame, because that is why we have the things about you're not enough, or there's something wrong with you. The 5 of Wands is that messiness that is happening right now, because we're trying to figure out how to go back to, or not how to go back to what we were before, because obviously we didn't know we knew that didn't work anyway.
You can't go back.
Yeah, there is no normal. There is no normal to go back to.
Yeah.
Like, this is the now, and we have to get used to that. But I mean, I would say that, so we're in a transition period. I also think of like Five of Wands as like very like writer's block kind of a thing. Like it's that block before creativity really flows, which is the Six of Wands, because it's like coming home. It's like yeah. And then, so the Seven of Swords, I like Lindsay's interpretation of that too, which is basically like we're looking at something, our gaze is drawn away from like what we don't have and not focused on what we do have. So we do have like health. We do have, I mean, well, knock on wood for everybody, that we are going to be, you're healthy, you're safe. And although everything might seem like horrible and shitty, you are okay right now.
Mm-hmm.
And you just kind of have to just understand that, and to be grateful for what you do have. The Crowley actually interpretation, even though this is not the Crowley deck, is that your fears are not based in reality. I like that one a lot. And it's just basically like, just relax, you're okay. And for me, it's a card of anxiety, and shocking, I get that card a lot. And so I asked, what is our cosmic axe? What can break those chains?
The Tower.
I got the Tower. So basically, my interpretation of it is we just need to let it burn. We need to surrender ourselves to greater forces, is really what it comes down to. Like, there is more going on than you can perceive, and it is ultimately for the highest good. Again, it's a very painful thing, but yeah, I mean, it all makes sense to me personally.
I think it's tough too for a lot of people, for sensitive people, but for everybody really. Like, even if your personal life is not at its worst, you are, looking at the news, you're seeing what's going on with your friends, you're doom scrolling.
100%.
So you're kind of like, you're not being territorial about your own space. And it is not that it's not good to care, it's good to care and to do whatever you can do. If you can do stuff to help other people, fucking go for it. But most of the time, the best you can do to help other people is to not burden them with your shit and take care of your own stuff and try to be a positive force, to try to hold strong. When you're going through dark times, the worst thing to do is to be dwelling, because then everybody gets dragged down. It literally sucks out your energy, and then you don't feel motivated to do the stuff you need to do to get through the day. You still have to work, you still have to run your household, you still have to be present in your relationships. So it's not like the world just stops. And I think that happened when the pandemic first hit. Everybody's like, well, I guess the world just stops, so I'm just gonna wallow in my fears and sadness, and I'm not gonna, eventually you just got to get back to it, and the world runs on us. We're the ones running the world. So if we stop, everything stops. Doctors and nurses can't stop. So there's no reason why writers, publishers, anybody else, you got to just keep at it and keep going. And it is in the darkness that you need the light, and you need to keep your focus. And you can be sensitive and be aware, but I think that's what makes it really hard, is there's just a lot of chatter.
Yeah, I mean, the anxiety right now is, I mean, I think also what a lot of people need to realize is that with this is not all of that is yours. Mm-hmm. That's a big thing to remember, especially if I mean, like, even social media, looking at social media, and if you read something and it triggers you, like, that can set you off on a loop that can set you back for like days, weeks, months, like, sometimes a whole year. And so, I mean, I would say, with all of this, you just got to be gentle with yourself. Drink lots of water, like, drink a lot of water, and try, and that's not going to fix everything, of course, but staying hydrated, caring for yourself, and being gentle to yourself, the big thing about the devil is it's all those little voices in your head that are talking about and saying that
You're not doing
that
it now.
there is something wrong with you. That's what it really comes down to. And guess what? Anytime that comes up, fuck off. You can tell that voice to fuck off. You don't, because really what the big thing with the devil with like Lindsay Mack is it actually is talking about the brain, like the survival brain. And the reason why this happens, it's because we're scared. Like we're scared because it's a scary time.
Yeah.
And that is like fear is totally, it's an absolutely natural reaction.
Right.
But you can still, but you are not your brain. You are not your thoughts, and you're not those feelings. Remember that. Like you are not the voices in your head. You are what is listening to those voices.
Right.
So just, yeah, I mean,
Like
just,
you know.
yeah, and also just like, you know, it's very, mindfulness is going to be helpful now too, because you don't have to react to every single one of those things. If you say, like, if you get that voice that says I'm not enough, or there's fucking something wrong with me, or everything's fucked, you can just say, okay, thanks for that. You don't want to bypass it. Spiritual bypassing is not going to help right now, but you can say, okay, thank you. I acknowledge that. I see that. Move on. I'm done. Like, thank you for that.
Put your brain in its place.
Exactly. Put it in the back seat. Like, don't let your brain drive the car. You're driving the car, and your soul, your heart, whatever you want to say, like let your higher self drive. It's a better driver.
Yeah. And it'll be able to do things that for your brain would actually seem complicated, maybe.
Exactly. Well, I mean, with the temperance card, it is essentially saying like there are things like with that first line of cards, like all the way up to like the chariot, it's saying like those are like all your earthly things, you know. And once you get past the chariot, you realize like I can't do all this, but like my higher self can, or my soul can, and that can guide you. Like you can let your inner voice, you can try to basically you can just ask yourself, just go within. Like that's literally probably going to be like my message for every fucking video that we do, but really like just look within and you can find these answers because they're there.
Yeah, you already know. I think we spend a lot of time in denial because we have a sense of what the answers are and we just don't like it. So we're like, oh, well, maybe it's something else. Maybe there's another way to do it. Like we keep trying to find these.
Maybe I can buy this thing and this will save me.
And then it's kind of like those stories where people get like circled back around and they keep ending up at the same spot and they're like, what the hell,
Yeah.
Very Blair Witch.
Yeah, exactly.
Was that the Pines, that show? But yeah, so literally life will just keep redirecting you and you're going in circles until you just go.
The universe is like, okay, here's another test. Do you want to pass it this time? Or do you want to repeat the same cycle? And personally, I don't want to repeat the cycle. I'm like, the universe is definitely testing us, but like we can study.
Big
like
test.
yeah. And I would say too, the last thing I would say about this is that a lot of our cards, we've gotten a lot of majors and a lot of like major arcana. And the major arcana those are big energies.
Right.
Like this is like, these are really like big times. Like maybe I would say that these are probably like, when we say unprecedented, we're talking about like in the history of the world, of humanity.
Yeah.
We are at a very, very important time. And what also the major arcana does is it invites us to surrender. And surrender, you don't have, like, people I think have such a weird relationship with that word, but really what it is that you understand that you're not you are not in control. Like there are things out of your control.
Yeah.
And you can just let them happen. Like, I can't stop the virus tomorrow. I wish that I could fucking snap my fingers and stop the virus, but I can't.
And then the
So
things you are in control of, you know, really
yeah,
take control of them, you know.
exactly. So
that's
the
how we
things that
operate as witches. That's how we operate, you know. And, you know, something that I find very frustrating whenever, you know, people are kind of like skeptical about witchcraft or whatever, and they're like, well, I don't know, you know. Like, the thing is, like, everybody's doing it, you know.
yeah, you're like, everybody is a witch.
Except
Absolutely. And you're,
non-witches are just shitty witches.
yes,
They
exactly.
don't know, they're not doing it consciously. They're not deciding what they want to do and how they want to move forward, what tools they want to use.
And if you're not willing to acknowledge your shadow and what's in your subconscious, you might, you know, sometimes I think people, and I obviously, I'm trying, sorry, I'm trying to phrase this in a way that I'm not saying that, like,
it will run them. It will run you. That,
yeah.
yeah. If you don't have it under control, it will take control. And then that's when you see people getting kind of, you know, driven by their compulsions, their addictions, their neuroses, their paranoias. You know, we all struggle with that. But, you know, if you don't have awareness, you know, and therapy is good for that as well. You know, therapy
Yeah.
can help people a lot to figure that stuff out.
And I see what you're saying, Deidre. You're saying that, like, people are not unconsciously, like, drawing bad. I mean, like,
I'm not saying that, like,
bad,
every time a bad thing happens to someone, it's their fault. Like, that's
the secret. Yeah, like, we don't subscribe to that here. We all know that, I think. I hope everybody knows that here. But yeah, I mean, like, you know, you don't get sick because you're a bad person, you know. That sometimes you just get sick. You'll also, people have to realize too that they're like, oh, well, how, you know, I got sick because I had negative emotion. Okay,
You can literally make yourself sick with stress.
Yes, you absolutely, you 100% can. But I'm also saying too that we live in capitalism, and we are poisoned by
there's pollution,
everything. So, like, is it just, you know, like, I do think to an extent that, I mean, I know personally I would say that we create our reality from our subconscious.
Yeah.
And so you are going to, if you have a mindset that the world is a horrible, terrible place filled with awful people who only want to hurt you, you're not going to have a good time, is all I'm saying. And I speak from fucking personal experience with that, because I 100% painted myself into a prison because I was sad and I hated myself.
Yeah.
But you can change. You can change your mind. That's what's, like, the most important thing I think people need to know, is you can change the way that you think.
Mm-hmm.
And make your life better. Like, now, I mean, I say fucking I'm a believer in affirmations now, which is just makes me laugh.
I'm a believer in using your resources, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Work with what you have, and you have a lot.
Something that is out of your reach of the current moment won't help you, you know, like those boards where you
vision boards.
I want this car, I want this, I want that, like, you know.
That's a good episode idea too.
But, you know, you got to put one step in front of the other. So, like, you got to look around and see, what do I have at this moment? What are my personal skills? What are my connections? What resources do I have available to me right now that I can use to get myself to the next step of the way? And then when you get to the next step, you're like, okay, what do I have now to get the other things I want? And then you just kind of just like, you're piggybacking on, you know, your resources that you have.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just survival, really, and conscious living. But let's wrap this up. So what I have for May is the Two of Cups.
I love that card.
Me too.
So lush and beautiful. It's beautiful in every deck. It's just like such a happy card. So, you know, if you're familiar with the tarot, if you're not, I think you can kind of tell what this is, you know, especially since in this deck. It literally says love right there. But it is kind of, you know, the coming together of the two. You know, two makes three, and that's when you have life, you have procreation, you have fecundity, you have plentifulness. And when it comes to water, that's the realm of emotions. So, you know, I'm seeing on an emotional level, I think in May, things are going to feel a lot easier than they did in April. I do think there will be more gatherings, at least of small groups. So, you know, I'm seeing what I see when I see here. I see friends getting together. You know, I see new relationships beginning. I see just kind of like an overflow, a bubbliness of emotion and excitement. And thinking about the water, I hypothesize that something will go on with water. I don't know what. Perhaps flooding, perhaps things having to do with water resources. I don't really know, but some kind of fluctuations in the realm of the sea and water and, you know, aquamarine life. It's going to be interesting because I feel like everything is kind of like springing back to life. I mean, it's literally spring. It's not spring all over the world. You know, Australia is like backwards or whatever. But we're kind of like at that floodgate ending of like what this whole year has been onto like what is coming next. So overall, very positive, but potentially some natural upheavals of some sort.
I would say too, for the Two of Cups, it can definitely be like with another person, but also it also can speak to like loving yourself, essentially, like really, because if you imagine like think of like those two cups, think of like your conscious self and your unconscious self like toasting, essentially. That's kind
Yeah,
of like what I see. And so with, it's interesting if we go from like all of our last cards, like we can use that as a story. So we can go with, say, like the devil, like having that doubt, having that anxiety, not loving yourself and kind of chaining yourself to that. And then you essentially, you love all parts of yourself, and you understand that even though there are parts of myself that I don't necessarily like, that I'm not exactly happy with, I can still love those parts of myself. I can love myself with my flaws, and especially my flaws. And that can lead to the world, an end of those limiting beliefs, and moving on, closing out a chapter and starting a new one. So I love that.
I love that. This is surprisingly positive. Like I didn't really know what we would be getting, and we've definitely had some like darkness in this film.
Definitely. Yeah, devils, towers, but I mean, it's also just funny to me that because it's an interweaving, as everything is because we're all interconnected.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we have the tower and the star in the same reading, and we have the devil and the world in the same space, and then we have, you know, deep healing in the same space with death and the devil, you know. So I mean, life is a rich tapestry, isn't it? Like,
a lot of transformative energy, which makes so much sense during this time.
Yeah.
Like this is, I'm going to be really interested to see how, of course, how this plays out, but also what like our readings look like for the months after this.
Mm-hmm.
Because my prediction, I suppose, would be that it will be a little less, maybe a little less intense.
Maybe.
I think, yeah. I mean, you never know, of course. But I mean, I think that right now, like we're really, I mean,
We're
we're
really
in the we're in it right
yeah.
now. I mean, like I think we all know that. But yeah, I mean, like nobody's going to be surprised that we got the tower in one of these readings because we've been in the tower for at least a year, probably longer than that, to be honest. But I mean, 2020 was, even though 2020 was really like an emperor death year, because it's interesting because death is the teacher of the emperor, and the emperor knows that he is not exempt to death. Um, and we saw that last year. We saw that, even powerful people can die.
Mm-hmm.
And also too, that, this thing affects everybody, like we are all interconnected. But also at the same time, it was absolutely a tower year. I mean, we literally saw, like, what was it? The Washington Monument get struck by lightning. Just like, I just love how the universe is just like, oh no, like I'm gonna be really obvious with the metaphors here.
Time I saw like an actual tarot card in real life was when the Twin Towers were struck.
Yeah,
I was
definitely.
like, oh. And I had just started looking at, started looking at the tarot like a few months later, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, huh, I literally just saw that happen.
Yep. I mean, and that was definitely a tower moment too, obviously.
And it was a bad tower moment because like what should have been a teachable moment of some sort, I feel like was just the reaction was to just like lock down more and become more aggressive, and so it's like rebuilding the tower again.
Exactly. I mean, and that's why, I mean, I'm not gonna say that's why COVID happened, but I mean, that's why all these like systemic issues are happening, is because we didn't address them back then.
Yeah.
And so like, are we going to learn or are we going to repeat the same shit?
This is scary, this is like, I think it's at least clear to me how connected this is to the environment and the kind of havoc we're wreaking on it. And
Definitely.
It's almost like the universe putting us on pause, humans on pause. We are the biggest pigs of this planet. Like, okay, you're literally like hanged man position. Like,
yeah,
hold on a minute,
Yeah, exactly.
damage. You're going to have to just go in your house and just stay there and stop doing everything. Like, just stop. So we'll see what happens.
Exactly.
It's defining our future, and it already has. The future, I think, is going to be a lot different. There will be kind of social distancing will be a part of our future. I don't know if you saw I got so tripped out because I saw it in a dream and then I saw it in real life. In Paris, they designed a new movie theater that is designed to enforce social distancing, and it's like these little pod balconies and shit, like in a 3D screen. And I literally saw it in a dream, and then I saw an article and like they're made it in Paris. Like, it's happening. The future has changed.
Yeah.
The future has changed forever now.
Yeah, I mean, the future is now. That's the thing. Like that time where you once dreamed about, like it is now, and it's a lot different than you might have thought.
Yeah.
But, and it doesn't have to be dark. It's just different. Like that's really what it comes down to. Like, it doesn't have to be a bad thing. You don't have. I mean, especially like even with masks, to be completely honest, like it's not a bad idea. People are dirty.
I love my masks now. Cool ones.
I know, right? But I mean, it's just like I had a friend at work, and they were talking about like, they were like, I want like, they're like, people used to make food without masks. It's just like, I know, it's kind of insane.
Like in the doctor's office, like I feel safer with that, honestly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we've been learning some hard lessons, and hopefully we can make the best choices overall and just move forward in a constructive way. I think the big theme of these readings this evening was perception too. I feel like it's a lot about how we are looking at situations, and that is shaping a lot about how we handle them and what we do about them and how we experience them.
Yeah. So. Yeah, definitely. I mean, perception is everything.
Yeah.
It really is just, and if you can change your perspective, you can absolutely change your life. You can
Yeah.
change your reality.
Yeah. And we'll go into more of that kind of stuff in future episodes. You know, some things we do want to do an episode on The Secret and kind of like
Mm-hmm.
go through all the stuff that makes sense and doesn't make sense about that. And we have some other fun themes lined up, but we're back on the horse, back on the Witch TV horse. And it's so nice to be here with you guys, with Deidre and Tristan. You guys are so awesome. You guys bring like this awesome energy that is just, it's refreshing. I feel like it's really refreshing to just talk witchy stuff in a kind of non like, I don't know, no like veil of like mystery. Like it's just kind of out there and
Mm-hmm.
normal and real. And it's, you know, it's
It's nice to talk about witchcraft where it's a given that witchcraft is a thing we all do, and we
Exactly. It's not, I don't have to debate on somebody, you know, I don't have to debate somebody about whether astrology is real, or, you know, or, you know, like whether, you know, or witches are real. Like we know because we are them. You know,
there's
like we
no need to.
are witches. Exactly. We don't have to justify anything, and then we can move on from that, because that's a lot of wasted energy.
Yeah, and it really helps when discussing kind of these big things that are occurring, not just world events, but, you know, even from a science perspective, and just a lot of the workings of the universe. Once you understand how kind of energies are exchanged and how your personal energies interact with the world, it's a lot easier to talk about how things work and why they happen the way they happen.
Exactly. I mean, because ultimately they are just, it's just a different, it's a language is really what magic is. You're able to put into words, you know, like what seemingly doesn't have them, you know.
Yeah,
And
just
yeah, I mean,
like
and
mathematics, it's a language of its own.
exactly. And that's why I love astrology and human design and things like that, because it just gives us another way to describe the human experience.
Mhm. I think a fun episode we could do is I've definitely had like pretty insane like dream encounters, and like I've had like a flying lesson, like all these crazy things, reading books in libraries in my dreams, like reading like sacred texts type things. Like if we all just talked about our like astral strange mystical dream experiences, I think that would be a really fun episode.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Dreams are like, Deirdre and I have been working on dream stuff for like years, actually, now that I think about it. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one thing we could talk about is Brent and I once wanted to try meeting up in a dream, but we never tried it. So I don't know, but something we could all think about.
We could
Yeah.
try. I mean, I actually did meet up with my brother a long time ago. It wasn't like we decided to,
Yeah.
but I had just left for college. We're 10 years apart, so he's 10 years younger than me. I had just recently left for college, and I had a dream in which we were in our backyard, and he was in this crazy little wizard outfit too. And he was flying around, and he was just like really good at it. He was like a pro. He was like flying around, flew up in this tree, and I saw him. And then like I talked to him a few days later, and I was like, and he was like, I had a dream with you. His setting was different, but it was like at the same time. So like we did actually meet, you know, but like in each of our minds, the setting was different.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
weird. So yeah, thank you everybody for joining us on this episode of Witch TV. We'll be back next time with a much shorter gap between episodes, doing summer forecasts. So see you soon, and subscribe to Class TV if you want to see more of our witchy thoughts and exposés.